In the 5th year of marriage, Ryan tasted the sweetness of having affairs. One after another, he flirted with others right under my nose. He said he wouldn't be coming home that night, and I said okay. He said he couldn't accompany me on our wedding anniversary and was going to celebrate the birthday of his mistress instead. I still smiled and said it was okay. I didn't make a fuss and I even helped deliver the mistress's baby. Here, your son. Look how lovely he is. When I handed the baby to Ryan, he finally broke down and shook my shoulders, questioning me frantically. Xiaoyun, I beg you, don't be like this. Don't be so cold to me. Even if you scold or hit me, it's okay. Don't you love me anymore? I brushed his hands away and pointed at the floor with a smile. Get down on your knees. Kneel down and I'll tell you whether I still love you or not. 01 On my way home from work while driving, I received a call from the police station. Hello, are you Mr. Sher's wife? Yes, I am. Your husband has been detained for drunk driving. Please come to the police station. Hearing that Ryan was detained for drunk driving, I didn't have much emotional fluctuation. Because for someone like him whose sense of morality had been degenerating over time, it wasn't surprising no matter what he did. However, what I didn't expect was that I was stopped by the police outside. One just went in, and now another one has come. The young police officer scratched his head in confusion. I was stunned for a moment and then asked, did the girl who just went in claim to be Ryan's wife? Yes, and that girl even took out their marriage certificate. There's no mistake, the young police officer narrowed his long eyes. So, who are you? 02 So who am I? How ridiculous. The corners of my mouth curled up with a self-mocking smile. I was too disdainful to prove myself. I folded my arms and stood lazily beside the young police officer. Under the puzzled eyes of the young police officer, I raised my eyebrows at him. Sister will treat you to a good show later. 10 minutes later, Ryan came out. One arm was draped with his suit jacket, and the other was affectionately held by Luna. Luna's face was flushed, and her voice was soft and coquettish. Sorry, brother Ryan. I wish I hadn't come with you. Cough, cough, cough. The young police officer standing beside me covered his lips with his hand and coughed softly in embarrassment. At the same time, they also saw me. Even after seeing me, the two in front of me still maintained the posture of holding hands. Ryan showed up in front of me with his mistress, and his handsome face didn't show the slightest hint of guilt. He was calm, but I was even calmer than him. I walked over casually and flicked the dust off Ryan's shoulder. Honey, I heard that you committed bigamy behind my back. What's going on? Ryan furrowed his brows into a straight line and looked impatiently at Luna beside him. Luna's expression became timid, and her voice was low. It's a fake marriage certificate. Nonsense. Ryan shook off her hand, but he wasn't really angry either. In the cool night, one had a cold face while the other lowered her head in grievance. They looked just like a couple having a tiff. It made me, the legitimate wife, seem like an outsider. The young police officer not far away winked at me, and I helplessly spread my hands at him. Yes, as you can see, my husband cheated on me. And he did it with such confidence. Suddenly, the young police officer clenched his fists in anger. I smiled, took off the warm gloves on my hands, and gave them to the young police officer. He had been standing in the cold wind of the 12th lunar month just to watch the show with me, and his hands were red and stiff from the cold. Poor guy. On the way back, Ryan opened the door of the driver's seat, but I grabbed him. After a few seconds of being stunned, Ryan understood and explained impatiently. I didn't drink. It was her who drank. The person named in his words shifted her gaze away in shame. I didn't understand what they meant, but since Ryan didn't say anything, I asked Luna. Luna's innocent voice drifted in my ears. Because I drank and kissed brother Ryan, that's why he was detected by the traffic police with the detector. 03 There was silence in the air for a few seconds. It felt as absurd as when the people from a certain country claimed that Confucius, Laozi, and Zongzi were theirs. I bent over and couldn't help laughing. I looked at Ryan with a funny and sarcastic look. Ryan stood aside and felt uncomfortable under my stare, so he simply got into the back seat. If you don't trust me so much, then you drive. I took a moment to calm down and laughed until tears came out. The thick twilight was pierced by the car lights. Luna and Ryan sat side by side in the back row. I was their driver, occasionally tapping on the steering wheel and humming a song. You seem to be in a good mood. Ryan narrowed his eyes, looking unhappy. I ignored him and focused on driving. After dropping Luna off at school, Ryan followed me into the elevator of our community. From then until I took a shower and went to bed, I didn't say a word to Ryan. To be honest, I was really sleepy and wasn't affected by anything at all. On the contrary, the person beside my pillow tossed and turned, unable to fall asleep. Finally, when I was about to fall asleep, Ryan said, Emma, I've noticed that you've changed. I slowly opened my eyes in the darkness, my tone lazy and drawn out. Oh, where have I changed? You've become more sensible. Ryan sat leaning against the headboard, with a serious expression. I almost burst out laughing again. Afraid that this joker, would really disturb my peaceful sleep if this went on, I got up and shuffled out in my cotton slippers. Where are you going? Ryan suddenly sat up straight, and his tone carried a sense of panic that he himself wasn't even aware of. I opened the bedroom door, rubbed my tired eyelids. Come on, big brother. I have an operation to perform tomorrow. If you can't sleep, don't disturb me. Is that all? Ryan asked uncertainly. What else? I couldn't help laughing. Wish you a good dream. The moment I walked out of the room and raised my hand to close the door for him, the smile on my face disappeared completely. It was true that I had an operation tomorrow, but it was false that I wished him a good dream. How could I wish him a good dream? I wished he would be haunted by nightmares. I wished he could immediately become me and experience the feeling of being betrayed and let down personally. Being magnanimous was just an adult's disguise. 04 But before the disguise, we also had a period of pure and beautiful love. I was Ryan's childhood sweetheart, and he was mine. Our two families were old friends, and we knew everything about each other. During puberty, we fell in love with each other. After becoming adults, we walked into the marriage hall hand in hand. We once promised to grow old together. However, the relationship that had lasted for over 20 years still went bad. When did it start to rot? Probably 2 years ago. It was my zodiac year, and everything went wrong. I delivered a baby for a pregnant woman, but it was a bloody stillborn. On my way home, my car broke down, and I got drenched in the rain all the way home. When I got home, Ryan immediately rushed over and wrapped me in a piece of clothing. But there was more blame than concern in his tone. How did you get so wet? I took off my wet coat and wiped my hair with a towel. While Ryan was pouring hot water for me, I smelled the faint fragrance of a woman's perfume in the air. A woman's sixth sense is always very accurate. I looked around warily. In the bathroom. I accurately locked onto the place. There was a person hiding in the bathroom. My forehead throbbed, and blood rushed violently to my head. Before I could react, everything went black in front of my eyes, and I fainted. Overwork and low blood sugar. Ryan told me what the attending doctor said when I woke up in the hospital bed. My consciousness was still in a daze, but Ryan suddenly lost his temper, looking very unhappy. How long are you going to keep working so hard? I was startled. Thinking that he was worried about my health, I subconsciously reached out to hold his hand to please him. What's wrong? But Ryan turned his body aside to avoid my outstretched hand. It's because you usually work too hard that your body has been worn out. I lowered my head, feeling lonely, and curled my fingers. I'm a doctor myself. I know my own physical condition. Even if you don't care about me, why do you blame me? So what? I blinked my misty eyes, and my voice was cold. So what? That's why you haven't been able to get pregnant. 05 I was so emotional. All the patients around looked over. Under their gazes, I suddenly realized. So that was the reason. If it wasn't for my inability to get pregnant and being too busy with work, he wouldn't have gone outside to find other women to relieve his boredom and satisfy his desires. Everything was my fault, and he was blameless. So I wasn't mistaken. There was really a woman hiding in our bathroom at home. So I was rightfully ignored by him. He threw my feelings aside and indulged himself outside, enjoying one fresh and interesting woman after another without any scruples. Ryan, you're rotten to the core. Whenever I recall the past, it always feels like a needle pricking my heart. I turned over, with my cheek against the pillow. Before going to sleep, I thought back a little. Which number was this female college student named Luna among Ryan's mistresses? The third or the fourth? I'm so sleepy. I turned off the small bedside lamp, tucked the quilt under my chin. Forget it. Let him do whatever he wants. Sleeping is more important. The next morning was Monday. The hospital had to conduct rounds as usual, so I got up especially early. Unexpectedly, Ryan got up even earlier than me. He sat on the sofa with his legs crossed, reading a newspaper. There were big, red meat buns on the dining table. I walked over and took a look. Ryan didn't even raise his eyes. Eat them. I bought them specially for you. His tone sounded like he was doing me a favor. I smiled indifferently, walked to the entrance, faced the hanging mirror, and tied a beautiful bow on my white shirt at the collar. No, thanks. You can eat them yourself. I can't eat cold things. Ryan was stunned for a moment, then got up and walked to the dining table. He scooped up a spoonful of porridge and put it into his mouth. But he spat it out immediately. The weather was too cold. He bought it too early and didn't know to keep it warm in the pot. He had always been taken care of by others. How could he take care of others? He didn't even know how to take care of people. Even his attempt to make up was so insincere. I withdrew my gaze slightly, picked up my bag, and opened the door. Suddenly, a big hand was pressed against the door frame that was about to close. I turned around and looked at Ryan in confusion. Ryan thought for a while. I didn't kiss her. She was drunk and threw herself at me to kiss me. I nodded noncommittally and glanced at the watch on my wrist. I'm leaving. Otherwise, I'll get stuck in traffic later. Ryan's face immediately turned ugly. It seemed that since he had condescended to take the initiative to explain to me, I should be grateful, like a dog on the roadside being given a bone and wagging its tail crazily to welcome him. However, judging from his abnormal behavior at present, it might be a good start for me to regain control. Perhaps it was a wonderful beginning for me to take back the power. Delayed by him for a few minutes, I rushed downstairs and got into the car. But despite hurrying, I was still caught in the vortex of the morning rush hour. Staring at the traffic in front that was moving at a snail's pace, I slowly remembered my former self who was so humble and helpless. At first, few women could maintain a calm attitude in the face of their husband's infidelity. Unfortunately, I was among the majority. I was so angry that I couldn't be more furious. I was so mad that I threw things around. I resorted to mental torture. I grabbed Ryan's collar like a madman and punched his chest again and again. I questioned him word by word, asking why he betrayed me when I had given him my whole heart. The flesh in my heart was brutally torn apart, and tears kept falling, but all I got were Ryan's cruel words. Look at what you look like now. What's the difference between you and a madman in a mental hospital? I knew that if I told you, you would go hysterical and curse me non-stop. To be honest, you're not as cute and sensible as the women outside. Those few words sealed the deal. The man who cheated was not at fault. The one at fault was the woman who couldn't hold on to her man. To save this marriage, I made up clumsy excuses for Ryan. It wasn't my fault nor was it Ryan's fault. It was the fault of the women outside. I found Ryan's first mistress. I printed out flyers about her deeds of meddling in other people's marriages, being indiscreet, and having bad morals, and distributed them to her colleagues and superiors at her company for them to see. She did receive the punishment she deserved. She was fired by the company and suffered a lot from rumors. I foolishly thought that I had saved my marriage with Ryan all by myself. Little did I know that it only intensified Ryan's alienation and dislike for me. 06 I especially remember that I was taking a nice bath with rose petals in the bathtub. Ryan kicked the door open in a rage, grabbed my neck, pulled me out of the bathtub, and threw me against the hard tiled wall. He said, "Do you know that because of your flyers, my rivals managed to find out that I was the cheating scumbag? The project that was almost in my hands slipped away just like that. Do you know how much I lost?" I slid down along the smooth wall onto the floor, and the pain from my bones being bumped was unbearable. Ryan was so high and mighty, without the slightest look of distress. "I warn you, Emma. My patience has a limit. You can make as much fuss as you want at home, but if you ruin my reputation outside, don't blame me for disregarding our years of affection. As my wife, you should know better." I stared at Ryan's departing back and clenched my teeth. My love-struck mind was completely shattered by his act. I couldn't please the man, so I could only be scolded. Honk! The sound of a car horn urging me to move forward came from behind. I suddenly came back to my senses and stepped on the accelerator. The rest of the road was smooth, and I didn't encounter any more red lights. After coming back from the rounds and while washing my hands, my colleague Xiao Chui came over. "Dr. Emma, I heard that your husband came out of the police station with a young girl last night." I rubbed the foam on my hands and smiled. "Who told you that?" "A friend of mine works in the administrative department of the police station. She was on duty last night and saw it with her own eyes." I turned off the faucet, took a few tissues to wipe my hands. "It's not true. Your friend must have seen it wrong." "Really?" Xiao Chui looked up at me, full of doubts. I crumpled the tissue into a ball and threw it into the trash can. "Dr. Chui, instead of spending time gossiping, you'd better think about why your legs start shaking whenever you have an operation." Xiao Chui was left speechless and left awkwardly. But at noon when I was having lunch in the cafeteria, I saw her joining a group of people and chatting non-stop. While talking, those people looked back at me with strange eyes, trying to find traces of me crying bitterly on my face. I picked up a piece of sweet and sour pork and put it into my mouth, my eyes calm. When I made that fuss before, the mistress was disgraced. As a result, I also paid the price. My marriage with Ryan became known to everyone and was used as gossip and a laughingstock by others. No one would truly empathize with your helplessness and pain. Look, just like now. Others were using my husband's affairs as topics for chatting and laughing while having a meal. It wasn't my fault at all. Why should I lower my noble head in shame? So I picked up my lunchbox. Under the surprised gazes of those people, I asked curiously, "What were you talking about that was so funny? Tell me so that I can have a laugh too. After all, I'm so busy with my work schedule that I don't have time to gossip like you." They all looked at each other, and then they didn't even want to eat anymore, watching their backs as they fled in embarrassment. One word, satisfying. People really shouldn't be cowards. I remember that day when I got up from the floor, wrapped my bruised and barely clothed body with a bath towel. I leaned on the wash basin and saw myself in the mirror. My eyes were red and swollen, and my lips were bitten bleeding by myself. This wasn't the me I had expected. The mist was thick and it dissipated when the door opened. Gradually, I sorted things out from the chaos. Infidelity isn't caused by the third party, it's caused by the person who cheats. What I need to deal with is never the countless third parties but the root of the problem, which is the cheating spouse. I rose from the ruins and stopped torturing myself mentally. I won't get divorced easily. Leaving with so many scars isn't my style. This time, it's my turn to lead Ryan by the nose. 07 at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, a wealthy lady in the VIP ward started to go into labor. Considering that the baby's head was too big and might affect a natural delivery, I suggested a cesarean section, but the wealthy lady firmly vetoed it. She said she was a celebrity and couldn't have any scars on her body. I didn't say anything and did my best. In the critical moment, I still had the final say. As expected, the baby's head didn't fit properly in the pelvis, and it couldn't be delivered naturally. Moreover, the wealthy lady was exhausted, and the baby was in danger of suffocating in the uterine cavity. After discussing with the assistant doctors, I decided to change to a cesarean section. Finally, both the mother and the daughter were safe. However, after that, the wealthy lady didn't appreciate it and flew into a rage in the ward. She called me to the door of the ward and threw a cup at me. At the critical moment, a tall figure rushed in front of me and took the hit for me. William's face was gloomy. He stood in front of the wealthy lady's bed and showed his police ID. "If you keep making trouble, I'll sue you for assaulting a police officer." The wealthy lady didn't dare to say a word for a moment. She was a typical bully who was afraid of the tough. My eyelashes trembled. I quickly stepped forward and reached out to cover William's bleeding back of the head. "Ah, it hurts, it hurts." "At least you know it hurts." On the public chair in the corridor, I bandaged William's head with gauze, deliberately applying a bit more pressure. William looked aggrieved and took out a pair of gloves from his pocket. "I came to return the gloves to you. I asked around for a long time before I found out that you work in this hospital." Yes, William was the young police officer from that day. I didn't take the gloves. I turned around and tightened the cap of the disinfectant bottle, teasingly said, "Is this how you police officers save people when facing danger?" "Of course not." William suddenly raised his voice. "Not what?" I stared fixedly at this young and shy lad in front of me. "Nothing, nothing." William stammered and then asked me in a low voice like a thief, "Have you divorced your husband?" I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This kid came here just to satisfy his curiosity. I deliberately patted his head. "Are you that idle as a police officer?" William dodged in pain, feeling exposed. "I'm not idle. I'm almost forced to resign voluntarily. I'm given no tasks and told to go wherever it's cool." "Ah?" I exclaimed in surprise. William helplessly sighed. "My boss said I'm reckless and not suitable to be a police officer, that I'm easy to get into trouble." I thought about his act of using his body to block the dangerous object just now and deeply agreed. William understood my expression and got angry. "No, I'm not reckless. What my boss said is nonsense. I'm just a kid and need to be coaxed," I said. All right. You're not reckless. You're brave and resourceful. So you'll be jobless in the future." "Oh, poor thing." William lowered his head and said casually, "Not really. It's just that I have to go home and inherit my father's $1 trillion fortune. I feel it's a burden." 08 The corners of my mouth twitched. So William was really from a wealthy family. So this seemingly not-so-smart lad in front of me was the son of a bigwig in the upper class of Beijing, a young master of the elite circle. My agile mind started thinking rapidly. Ryan always told me in front of me that his family background was superior to mine and that if our parents hadn't been friends when they were young, I wouldn't have had any chance to get close to him. Some people think they are superior and look down on others, while some people are born into a high class but are humble and willing to shake hands with me. I keenly smelled the scent of victory. William invited me to have fun. I checked the duty roster and found that I happened to be off duty in the afternoon. Young people always like different things to play. Mountain road racing, exciting and thrilling. I didn't expect to meet Ryan and Luna here. William awkwardly touched the back of his neck. "I'm sorry. I didn't know." I looked at Ryan not far away and said, "It's okay. Who will be the coward is still uncertain." William gave me a thumbs up approvingly. "Awesome." We were chatting and laughing here while there was an argument over there. The situation was that Ryan suddenly changed his mind and didn't want to play anymore, but Luna stubbornly held his hand and refused to let him go. "Brother Ryan, are you afraid that Sister Emma will be angry?" "She won't be. I promise," Luna said. Luna walked over confidently. A young girl who was favored was fearless. "Sister Emma, Brother Ryan is playing racing with me. You won't be angry, right?" I smiled and didn't say anything. At this time, a guy with white hair walked over from the side and stuffed 2 black and white helmets into William's arms. "Oh, a rare visitor. This time you're not chasing thieves but chasing girls instead. Go away." William kicked him and glanced at me awkwardly. Then he introduced seriously, "This is my friend. Ah? It's not this pretty girl beside you but this hot sister." The guy with white hair mistook Luna for the person William brought. Luna gave him a dirty look. "What's wrong with your eyes? Brother Ryan and I are a couple." As soon as she said that, Luna realized it was wrong and looked at me nervously. All right. Ryan put his hands in his pockets and walked over impatiently, shouting a few words. "Stop talking nonsense. Are we starting or not?" The guy with white hair stood in front of the 4 teams and explained the rules. "This mountain road has a steep slope and a long distance. Plus, with female passengers, the difficulty is greater than before. It not only tests strategies but also physical strength. Safety first. Everyone should do what they can." William, who was standing beside me wearing a blue and white racing suit, couldn't help teasing them. "Obviously it's a 4-person race, but I somehow feel that the odds of winning are 3 out of 4. 09." Everyone understood the implication of William's words. He was mocking Ryan for being old and sitting in the office all year round, so his physical strength and endurance couldn't keep up with them, these young people who were always running wild outdoors. Ryan's face turned livid. Just as he was about to say something, I took a look at him. He swallowed the words that were on the tip of his tongue. Instead, Luna stood up indignantly to defend Ryan. "Watch your attitude when you speak. Our brother Ryan goes to the gym every day and has great muscles, okay?" William ignored her and looked down at me. He bent his elbow to show his biceps. "Sister, don't worry. My muscles are no worse than his. I'll take you to win this time." Our car was behind Ryan's. Luna kissed Ryan on the cheek. "Brother Ryan, you're the best in my heart." Ryan slapped the steering wheel impatiently. "Who said I won't win?" Luna was startled. William looked carefree and deliberately provoked. "Hey, uncle. Your state of mind will also affect the race. If you're not up to it, just get off the car." To be honest, I was also quite worried about Ryan. Although we grew up together, he was 5 years older than me. He was always picked up and dropped off by luxury cars. How could the strength he got from working out in the gym compare to the wild energy of youth? However, men always have great confidence. "Don't bother yourself about it." William slightly turned his eyes with a smile on his lips. "Sister, hold on tight." With a loud gunshot, the racing cars shot out like rockets. The mountain road was rugged and winding, and occasionally there would be unknown obstacles in front. It was indeed an exciting game that tested one's youth. The moment William's car overtook Ryan's, he whistled in the neutral gear. "Uncle, take your time climbing. Take care of yourself." Finally, William was the first to reach the top, pulled out the flag, and won the first place. William asked for praise like a child. "Sister, am I great?" I couldn't help laughing and pinned the wildflowers I picked by the roadside behind his ear. "You're really great." By the cliff, Luna was leaning on a tree, her face pale, vomiting constantly. Ryan stood beside her with a gloomy face, but his eyes were looking in my direction. Someone lost the race and couldn't hide his bad mood on his face. I raised the corners of my mouth and smiled without saying a word. Considering the safety of going down the mountain in the dark, our group chose to camp on the top of the mountain. There were limited tents. There were 4 girls, so 2 of them shared one tent. The boys made do and huddled together. We drew lots. Unfortunately, I drew the lot with Luna. The wind on the mountain top was strong and the night was cold. Everyone gathered around a fire. Luna sat close to Ryan and asked me clearly, "Sister Emma, do you snore when you sleep at night?" The cheerful atmosphere was suddenly broken by her. "Hey, if you don't know how to talk, just keep your mouth shut." Luna was choked and pulled Ryan's sleeve pitifully. Across the leaping golden fire, Ryan's gaze fixed on my face and he said, "She doesn't snore at night." How much weight did this sentence carry? The people present weren't fools and they looked at each other in surprise. He and she, then what was the relationship between him and her? Probably those onlookers had already imagined a dramatic and bloody soap opera in their minds. I took a bite of the perfectly roasted corn in my hand and smiled sweetly. Mr. "Sure, you guessed it right. Then could you tell me if your girlfriend snores at night?" Luna's face flushed with embarrassment and she looked nervously at Ryan. Ryan looked at me in astonishment. He couldn't believe that I would call another woman his girlfriend. Didn't I usually make a fuss about it? He didn't answer me and I didn't need his answer either. Before going to bed at night, Luna just asked me, "Sister Emma, if brother Ryan asks you for a divorce, will you agree? After all, he doesn't love you anymore. It's useless for you to hold on to him." In the dim light, I almost couldn't control my expression. Who would be the first to mention divorce and who would be the first to try to save the marriage? It was really hard to say. I laughed at the naivety of this girl in front of me, thinking that she was just a silly girl who was coaxed by a man's sweet words. After a while, there was a not too loud snoring sound beside me. I couldn't fall asleep, so I put on a coat and walked out of the tent. I picked a clean stone and sat down. In the grass not far away, fireflies were flying around. There seemed to be a person standing there, observing the fireflies as if he had never seen them before. I called out. Hey, William, what are you doing? William was startled by me. The gravel on the ground hurt his feet as he ran over. Why aren't you sleeping? Those people don't wash their feet and stink. I can't fall asleep because of that. William looked disgusted and glanced at the direction of the tent, then naturally sat down beside me. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I reached out to get the fireflies from William. William deliberately didn't give them to me and held them high above his head. He laughed. If you can grab them, I'll give them to you. Oh, my competitiveness. I directly stood up and rushed to grab them. I stepped on a small stone and stumbled. Seeing that I was about to fall, William put his arm around me and pulled me into his arms. His big hand was on my waist, and the hot temperature of the young man continuously penetrated into my skin. I looked up at him. William's Adam's apple rolled a few times, and his pupils were deep and dark. I was just about to pull away when I caught a glimpse of Ryan standing beside a racing car out of the corner of my eye, looking over with an obscure expression. I smiled secretly in my heart and wrapped my arms around William's chest tightly in an alluring way. William froze all over, not knowing where to put his hands. Little brother, don't be nervous. I gently touched William's soft lips with my fingertip and pressed them gently. Play a scene with sister. As soon as I finished speaking, I stood on tiptoe and pressed my lips against his. The temperature of the young man kept rising, as if he would burst into flames the next second. Ryan, not far away, clenched his fists tightly, and his face almost blended with the night. Then he turned around and left. Satisfied, I let go of William. William took a few steps back and took big gulps of fresh air. The blush spread from his earlobes to his whole body. I put my hands on my hips and laughed at him. Come on, little brother. I didn't even kiss you properly. Why do you look like you've been ravaged by me? He covered his face in shame. I realized it later. Don't tell me you've never been in a relationship. William still covered his face and turned his back to me shyly. I poked his back. Really? Could you please stop asking? Oh, okay. I patted his shoulder. Then you stay here by yourself for a while. I won't laugh at you anymore. But I couldn't help laughing. Ha. The next day, I asked for a leave from the hospital. The director teased me. Oh, it's a rare thing. Our workaholic in the hospital is also asking for a leave. Don't make fun of me. I'm taking sick leave. I'm afraid you're just pretending not to see it. All right. Then you have a good rest. The director was a 60-year-old aunt, kind-hearted and treated me very well. She was always afraid that I would exhaust myself at work. She would ask me if I wanted to ask for leave and go back to rest whenever she had the chance. Because I always stayed in the hospital during festivals and holidays without fail. In fact, this situation started 2 years ago when Ryan was unfaithful to me. Since then, I've devoted myself wholeheartedly to my work. A smart woman can clearly weigh the importance between work and a man. Especially when the man is an out-and-out scumbag, he can't be compared with work at all. Perhaps I've been working too hard in these years, and my body couldn't bear it. Just after being exposed to the cool wind on the mountain top for a while, I caught a cold and had a fever. I was lying in bed, shivering with cold. When Ryan burst through the door, I was in a daze, half asleep. He roughly grabbed me from the bed, and I instantly woke up for the most part. What are you doing, Ryan? Have you gone mad? I smelled the strong alcohol on him. When he brought his mouth close to me, I felt a splitting headache. Who was that guy? Did you sleep with him? Tell me. Ryan was so drunk that he was out of his mind, but the strength in his hands was surprisingly great. I was choked by him and could only make muffled sounds in my throat. Let go of me. I desperately slapped his hands. Ryan sobered up a bit. His face turned pale as he let go of me. I lay on the bedding covering my neck and gasping for breath. After I calmed down for a while, I stood up and slapped Ryan with all my strength. This slap made him sober up by half from his drunken state. Ryan came to his senses and stood there in a daze. Realizing that he almost strangled me to death, he approached me with an apologetic look. Sorry, Xiaoyun. I didn't mean it. I saw you kissing that guy last night. I couldn't bear it and almost went crazy. That's why I accidentally hurt you. I walked out of the bedroom. After moistening my dry throat, I let out a sigh of relief. I don't need your apology. Why don't you need my apology? Ryan's voice turned cold again. Is it true between you and that guy, so you don't care about my feelings? I put down the water glass and looked at this man who used to share the same bed with me in an amused way. If I said that I sprained my ankle and he just helped me, which caused that situation, would you believe it? Ryan gritted his teeth, and his thick eyebrows were tightly furrowed. I don't believe it. Oh. I didn't care. Believe it or not, it's none of my business. Emma. Ryan stopped in his tracks and called my name angrily. It seemed that his fist would hit me at any moment. Probably because I was sick, I had more courage than usual. I leaned my head forward. Come onorevole. Hit me here. Ryan's face turned blue and purple with anger. His hands hung stiffly beside the seams of his trousers. I stared at him. If you have the guts, hit me. Anyway, I've installed cameras at home. This time, I'll definitely sue you for domestic violence. Ryan's angry look disappeared all of a sudden. He probably remembered something and didn't say anything more. I was still having a fever and was too lazy to argue with him. Suddenly, he asked me solemnly, "Don't you love me anymore?" I didn't answer. He smiled hopefully. "You must still love me. If you didn't, you would have asked me for a divorce long ago, right?" I was so annoyed by his pestering, and my body was a bit weak. So I casually replied, "Then let's get divorced." "No." Ryan came over and held my hand. "You're joking, right? We've had a relationship for over 20 years. He also knew that we had a relationship that had lasted for over 20 years. When he was being affectionate with other women in bed, did he ever think that there was a wife at home waiting for him with the cooked meals? When he was traveling around the world with other women, did he ever think that there was a wife at home stroking the wedding ring and crying silently? While smiling, a tear rolled down from the corner of my eye. I wiped away the tear on my face and asked Ryan seriously, "Do you remember how many times you hit me?" Ryan was stunned, and his lips trembled. I kindly reminded him. "Once was in the bathroom. The second time, that is, the second woman he kept outside was an arrogant and domineering woman. I don't know by what means she rushed into my home and announced to me arrogantly she would be the next mistress of this house. I had just come back from the hospital and dealt with a dispute between interns and patients. I was really upset. She happened to run into my bad mood. I threw my bag on the floor and rushed up to grab her hair and pull it. The woman was pinned down on the floor by me, and both sides of her face received my slaps. Ryan happened to come back and saw me sitting on the mistress. He pulled us apart vigorously. That woman knew how to cry. Once she cried, it was all my fault. Ryan asked me to apologize to her. I refused to accept it and just wanted to beat that shameless woman to death. Before my slap could reach her, my cheeks started burning with pain. That was the second time Ryan hit me. After that, I swore that I wouldn't give him a third chance to hit me. I accused him word by word. Ryan was as defeated as ashes, but he still held a glimmer of hope. "You don't want to divorce me? Does that mean you still love me?" When a man hurts a woman and then asks her grandly whether she still loves him, in fact, he is testing the woman's bottom line, self-esteem, and trying to manipulate her. I shook off his hand, slowly walked closer to him, and leaned close to his ear with a cold smile. I said the cruelest words in the gentlest tone. "Get down on your knees. Kneel down and I'll tell you whether I still love you or not." In an instant, Ryan's face turned as pale as paper. His voice trembled. "Except for this, I'll promise you anything." Ryan was expecting me to say something. For example, as long as he cut off contact with those women, I would live a good life with him. But I was going to disappoint him. I walked to the sofa and sat down, folding my arms across my chest. "I want money." "What?" Obviously, this answer was beyond Ryan's expectation. His face regained some composure. It was much easier to deal with a woman asking for money. He had plenty of money. He ran over joyfully and squatted in front of my knees. "How much do you want?" "I'll give you whatever you want, as long as you don't divorce me." 30 million. I want to set up a maternity and child health care hospital on my own, recruit talented people, and contribute a little to women and children. Ryan hesitated for a moment. I snorted coldly. "No? No." Ryan firmly held my hand, with a determined look in his eyes as if he was risking everything. "I said I'll give you whatever you want. Don't say 30 million. I'd even give you my heart if I could." "Stop talking." I shook off his hand and rushed into the bathroom, vomiting out my dinner. In the middle of the night, my fever got worse. I took a piece of antipyretic medicine with the cold water beside the bedside table. I lay on my back on the bed, staring at the ceiling. Ryan had already left. He had many other places outside. Before leaving, he said he would deal with his affairs and make sure to come back to me clean. I wanted to say it wasn't necessary, but when the words came to my lips, I didn't even have the strength to talk to him. Look, men are like this. Those who are eager to please them are ignored, while those who are cold and distant are treasured by them. What you can't get always makes you restless. If it's not called being cheap, what else can it be called? Not all those who act cheaply can be easily forgiven. Divorce is too easy for Ryan. I've had the dream of opening a hospital since I was a child. If I relied on my regular salary, I might work myself to death all my life and still not earn enough money to open a hospital. It's like climbing a mountain. When I'm halfway up, I'm out of breath with exhaustion. But if someone can carry me to the top, when I reach the top, will he still be valuable? Do I still need him? Well, we'll see when that day comes. When Ryan completely cut off his relationships outside and wanted to start anew with me, I applied for an opportunity for medical exchanges abroad which would last for 2 years. When you bury your head and concentrate on studying, time passes like flowing water. When you look up, you'll find that there's a confident light in your eyes and you'll smile brightly and gracefully. There's a natural charm flowing from you. That's what people mean by knowledge makes elegance. At the airport when I returned to China, I noticed someone following me. To protect myself abroad, I learned some self-defense skills. When that person got close to me, I grabbed his arm and threw him over my shoulder. The man groaned in pain, and the black baseball cap on his head fell to the ground. This handsome guy looked a bit familiar. How could he not be familiar? The man got up from the ground, rubbed his messy short hair and his handsome face. It's me, William. William? 15 William said that he recognized my back at a glance as soon as he got out of the airport. He didn't expect to be mistaken by me for a pervert. So, you've also been in Germany for the past 2 years. I bought 2 ice creams. I gave one to William as an apology. William took it and licked the white cream with his thin lips. Didn't I tell you before that my dad asked me to try to take over the company? William had been studying business in Germany for the past 2 years while I was studying medicine in Germany. After knowing that we were in the same foreign country but had never met, William got angry. Why didn't you tell me? It made me miss you when I saw things related to you. Miss what? The airport was noisy, and I didn't hear clearly. Nothing. William was secretly sulking. He turned sideways and quietly ate his ice cream. In fact, 2 years ago, William came to see me. I told him that I was going abroad, but I didn't tell him which country specifically. The young man stood in front of me shyly. Although he was tall and big, he lowered his head shyly. Can I have your contact information? I smiled. This young boy who had never been in a relationship took a momentary feeling as love. As someone who had experienced more, I was qualified to guide him onto the right path. The setting sun's afterglow shone in the hospital hall like a dividing line between the young woman and the young man. I put my hands into the pockets of my white coat and took a few steps back consciously. No, but I wish you a bright future. I didn't expect that 2 years later, we would still be brought together by fate. As night fell, I picked up my luggage and was about to tell William to leave. After just a few steps, at the airport exit, Ryan walked towards me in a hurry, with excitement and uncontrollable joy on his face. Emma. He opened his arms, wanting to hug me. But a childish voice suddenly interrupted him. Not far away, a 2-year-old little boy stumbled towards him. Daddy. Ryan's face instantly lost all its color. He froze on the spot. 07 behind the little boy was a woman. I took a look and realized it was the wealthy lady who had firmly refused to have a cesarean section before. I remembered that the wealthy lady had a husband. William bit his ice cream cone and exclaimed in surprise. He understood it before I did. Men not only like younger women, but sometimes they also hope to have affairs with other men's wives. That's so exciting. I was shocked. After thinking about it, it really matched Ryan's promiscuous behavior. Why did you bring him here? Ryan glared at the 18-line actress named Scarlett and reprimanded her. Scarlett obediently lowered her head. It's not me who brought him here. He kept making a fuss. I've already said that I won't take responsibility for this child. Go find your husband. Scarlett sadly shed a tear. He knows the child isn't his, so he divorced me. William took me and pretended to ignore Ryan as we walked past him. But Ryan grabbed my sleeve, with a humble and begging look in his eyes. Xiaoyun, let's talk. There's nothing for us to talk about. William took a step forward and stood in front of me. I pushed aside this nuisance in front of me and showed a willing smile. Okay. Sister. William looked down at me in confusion. I reached out and rubbed the messy hair on his forehead. Be good. Sister really has something to talk about with him. I tried my best to persuade him and even gave him my WeChat to coax him away. In this era of rapid development, 2 years is enough to build a private hospital. Ryan had arranged everything for me, just waiting for me to take office as the new director. In the closed car, only Ryan and I were left. He handed me a pile of materials about the hospital and asked cautiously. Are we? You have a child now. Congratulations. I interrupted him with a smile. Ryan's lips trembled, and he anxiously pulled his own hair. It was an accident. I took out a divorce agreement that I had entrusted a lawyer to draft in advance from my bag. Ryan stared at the agreement, and his pupils couldn't help shrinking. There was hatred in his eyes immediately. He tried to force a kiss on me. I was prepared. I took out an electric shock baton and shocked him on the neck. Ryan convulsed as if he were on drugs. I dropped the divorce agreement and immediately opened the car door and fled. 1 month later, the hospital officially opened. As the director, I stood in the middle of the crowd and expressed my truest thoughts. The reason why I opened this hospital was because of my aunt who died during childbirth. She was the nicest woman to me besides my mother. But I watched her die in front of me helplessly. I was powerless at that time. The bloody scene always inspired one's fighting spirit. Since then, I swore that I would become an excellent obstetrician and gynecologist in my life. If I couldn't be as good as Hua Tua, I would open a maternity and child health care hospital that benefits all women in the whole society. Warm applause broke out. I stepped down from the stage. Ryan appeared behind me like a ghost. I hadn't seen him for a month and he looked much more haggard, his shrewd face looked even more mean because of his thinness. Well done. You used me and then discarded me. Aren't you a piece of trash? I habitually tucked the loose hair at my temples behind my ears. Do you want me to list your crimes one by one? You're addicted to cheating, having affairs with other men's wives, having an illegitimate child, oh, and domestic violence. If I collect all these evidences, Mr. Sure, what are your chances of winning? I helped you open this hospital to atone for my sins. Shouldn't you thank me? Ryan was at a loss for words and was left speechless by my words. It happened to be raining when we went to the Civil Affairs Bureau to handle the divorce procedures. Coincidentally, it was also raining on the days when we fell in love and got married. The boy in a white shirt carried the girl with a sprained ankle and ran in the rain as if they were the only two people in the world. The groom carried the bride in his arms and was forced to do squats. No matter how tired he was, the groom never thought of putting the bride down. It was like brilliant light, and also like fallen ashes. Empty yet full, muddled yet clear. Marriage, after all, can't rely solely on love. When we came out, Ryan's eyes were red and he said through gritted teeth, I hope you'll regret the decision you made today. I was fearless and looked back at him scornfully. I, Emma, never regret anything. Just like I never regretted this marriage. I entered marriage with the shyness of a young girl, tasted the sweetness of marriage, and also endured its bitterness. Just like life, full of various situations, some twists and turns are what make life. I don't regret it, and I'm not afraid to step into a new relationship. So when William, wearing a black coat and looking mature but still nervous, asked me if I would like to be his girlfriend, I smiled brightly and gracefully and extended my hand. I'd be glad to. Later, under my careful management, the hospital became very famous. The natural childbirth rate was 100%. Even pregnant women on the verge of death could be pulled back by me at all costs. I devoted myself to the study of obstetrics and gynecology. I lost a lot of hair, and William stroked my head affectionately. I took off my glasses and punched him. Is that polite? I'm not bald yet. All right. William's voice was hoarse as he pinned me down on the sofa. Then can I be more polite tonight? Later, the next news I heard about Ryan was when I was 5 weeks pregnant in the hospital. My belly hadn't started to show yet. William carefully supported me, fearing that I might bump into something. When we passed the nurse's station, I heard those people gossiping. The general idea was, unwilling to be broken up with, Luna had been pestering Ryan for the past 2 years. She faked suicide several times. Later, it was heard that Ryan had an illegitimate child. Luna, who believed in pure love, couldn't accept it and actually went to commit suicide. On the overpass, her taken-off canvas shoes were pressing on a suicide note. The content was roughly about her telling that Ryan had forced her to have an abortion, yet she was still let down by him, and only death could ease the pain in her heart. How pitiful. I shook my head after hearing it. The pitiful ones were probably Luna's parents. They happily sent their daughter, whom they had raised for over 20 years, to university. They never expected that for a man, she would abandon them, leaving them to experience the pain of losing their child. Honey, don't listen to those messy things. What if it affects our baby in the belly? William covered my ears and almost carried me as we walked. Let me tell you something happy. I snuggled into his warm coat. What is it? Your ex-husband. Because of the suicide incident, the blame was directly pointed at him. Besides, someone exposed that he slept with someone else's wife, got her pregnant and had a child. Now the company's stock has dropped sharply. Many major cooperation projects have urgently terminated their agreements. With such a big impact, he's so busy and in a terrible mess now. It's only a matter of time before he gets removed from his position. I smiled and pointed at the candied hawthorn skewers not far away. I'll be happier if you buy me a skewer. William immediately took out his phone. Let me check first whether pregnant women can eat candied hawthorn skewers. I laughed at him for making a fuss and being so nervous. I'm an obstetrician and gynecologist myself. Don't I know? In the end, I was still wrapped up by him and we walked on. Honey, I'll make it for you. I don't really trust the ones sold outside. When William was fastening my seat belt, I suddenly felt nauseous and wanted to vomit. My eyes suddenly looked at the place where the candied hawthorn skewers were sold, with a longing look. A hint of slyness flashed in my eyes. I gently stroked his face. Be good. Let's go home. Wife will make it for you. Ugh. Honey, I really want to vomit. I'm craving something sour. The end.